Okay, so here we go. And since I have learned that even before I become live, my show starts, I can work it a little appropriately. It's a little late, and hello to all those who are already here to this. Well, it was kind of Crystal AMSR, I hope I have the acronym correct, said, oh, you got to do one now. So I just figured, oh, I was feeling playful. I'm kind of tired enough. I almost feel like a little punch drunk. So I felt I could be playful, and it was interesting thinking about it. I was going, we could go Corey Gate continued, like I could put Corey Good's name in the title. And I'm quite sure that would probably at least double the viewership, because whenever I have done that in the past, and I have addressed this issue a few times in the past, my views go way up. I didn't want that kind of viewership, so I just put Blue Chickens, Decompression, and just kind of picking up a little bit. But of course, now that I'm kind of sitting here at the head and kind of interject my kind of Gnostic perspective into things, without talking necessarily about the subject itself. Just the perspective. I have just a little something to prod me along. But let me get into the live chat. And I got a few people. That's great. Hello, Windsor, Madfinger, Groovy Bean, Boz Gage, or I guess it's Boz Gage, the real Dan Hogan, Daniel Inman, Oswald Spengler. So, hello, Tamu, Cosmic Gypsy. So, I don't see any comments about my voice being too low. I think I have it tweaked right. It was a little hot the last two times I listened to it. So yeah, so I didn't want to put anything about Corey Good in my title, because I kind of want my subscribers to who kind of been taking whatever journey I'm taking, to be kind of on the same path and not bring in a whole bunch of other people by using kind of clickbait. So this is the Blue Chicken Decompression, Saturday Night Blue Chicken Decompression. And also just a little bit to speak out on. I'm in the Moose Clan. I'm a clan brother in the Moose Clan. And when there was still a Moose Lodge on YouTube, the Groovy story was trying to percolate up, but those were different times, so it didn't. So I'm just acknowledging that this is the second time her story's coming up, and I'm really glad that it appears that these are different times, for whatever reason that is, and that there seems to be some traction for what happened to her by a group, the Blue Chicken people, that proposes, first of all, to be love and light, and they're kind of being called to task. Like, in other words, the criticisms against the Blue Chicken people is, like in the latest one is the trademark. That's scumbaggery. Okay, yeah, but they're backing out, whatever. But there's still some people who would support that. So it's kind of like, not, most people might be horrified or think it's very heavy-handed, but it's not like black or white. It's not kind of like a central way to it. It devolves into black or white. And then when it comes to the veracity of the Mr. Good himself, what his story about this, in other words, like, as CW had said earlier tonight, calling him a liar. Even that, there's fudge room. But when it comes to how they treated somebody who was working with them, somebody that we know has very good skills, and especially with multimedia and website creation, a very talented artist, somebody who was really in there, and when she was in there, she was with them, and whatever things started to become apparent, she created distance, and the way these people react is with designating somebody in the dark alliance. In other words, the hitmen will now know who's on the shit list. It's really thuggish behavior, very cult-like, because that's where really we get the thuggishness. And so at the core of her treatment and the harassment, for simply speaking out, and not somebody on the outside, somebody on the inside speaking out, the way she was attacked, and these, again, by the love and light crew, by those who were speaking of, who, I guess depending on where you pick up their story, ascension. Yeah, Jimmy Church the other night on, the other night on Richard Dolan was, if you know how to listen to somebody, if you know when you're following a conversation what the topic of the conversation is, and then who stays on topic and who just kind of finds all kinds of, tangents to go off on, and knowing that those tangents are not just attention deficit disorder. Hello, Calendal. So the way Jimmy kind of slid through that conversation he had with Richard Dolan was just more confirmation. The man is part of a media outlet that apparently is in bed with a certain parent corporation, and they want to stay on good terms. So there's a certain path to walk there. So if you just kind of really get clear that what Jimmy's doing is being true to his bottom line in his job, he's being a good order taker, then there's no surprises. And to expect him to stand for something that a system will not allow you to do, which is just to be brutally honest. Because the people who do practice deception usually practice some form of bribery, trade, arrangements, agreements. All kind of a whole little secret society, develops, to that particular thing. But Jimmy Church is just another media outlet, specializing in a certain kind of material. But it's an outlet. It's a media outlet, and there's money behind what certain people are doing, and so that money finds its way in the forms of advertisement and other arrangements, and so certain performances are expected from participants, and so the reason I won't really go after Jimmy, because to me it's obvious who and what he is. So if there's no deception, in my opinion, because to me it's clear who he is. He's not deceiving me, so I don't feel deceived. Same thing with the stories of the blue chicken story, law of one, and on and on. That's not a story for me that I'm comfortable with necessarily going after. That's why I bring it back to Groovy Bean. There's a story I feel very comfortable saying, take a look at this. Take a look at this. Because it's, there's kind of like, usually, like I said, it can be two sides to anything. Is TM good or not? Is Corey telling the truth or not? When you see this kind of treatment, to me it kind of breaks down to, are you human or not? A functioning human, an ensouled human, not some meat bot. And so there are certain truths that can be disputed, but the way they treated Groovy would be very hard to dispute. And one of the ways I've kind of been wanting to handle the Groovy story is, where somebody like CW helps make sure it stays a little more present, because again, CW has a much louder voice than my channel does. But real preferably because Groovy has actually worked with dark journalists. She used to be one of the ones, I think, who read the questions, if I recall, something that Olivia's doing now. And so, I would really hope that Daniel would want to pick it up. Because to me, this story is the heart and the stake of the vampire. Everything else is kind of disputable and a judgment call. I think there's a lot less room for a judgment call when you just see the stalking and villainizing and just creating misery in the life of somebody you disagree with. So I wanted to see whether or not even Cliff High. There's a few people who I thought, people who, hello, Jeff, people who have spoken out against the blue chicken cult. And it's just like, how about this angle? The other angles, I just really feel they have room for slipperiness. You could make a great case logically for it, and then, but still, there's the people who might refuse to see the logic, incapable of it. They're, emotionally based, and you haven't appealed there. One of the things that the Groovy Bean story has is lots of EQ to it. That's where the story really lives in your gut, when you hear about the treatment of a human. You might say, oh, these are some really creepy humans. And then you find out that these creepy humans present this other public face and the hypocrisy of that face. Hello, Doc. So calling bullshit on that hypocrisy. Hello, Lee. And but I only give so much voice because I feel that the main voice should be Groovy Bean herself. Her decision whether or not she really wants to be there, whether or not she wants a better hearing of what she went through with the blue chickens, and what kind of people are running that operation. Hello, Christian Martin. And this, her story gets away from whether it's trademarking, uh, whether they're marketing, reeks of marketing and not, enlightenment. I mean, these are all other side conversations where people will go, hey, it's fine for them to do this. Oh, it's kind of tacky. And you have that. But when you get to how Groovy Bean was treated, all of that sophistry goes away quickly, in my opinion. And that's why I kind of call it, her story is really a stake in the heart of that vampire. Hello, Don. Yeah, Crystal, this was all your idea. This live stream. I would never have even considered it, and I saw you put it in, and I went, okay, because I know I look tired and not my normal Showtime self. But it's the decompression, so I'm in good decompression mode. Decompression is proceeding well, because it has been really feverish. With Joe from the Carolinas doing what he's doing, CW is doing what he's doing, Dark Journalist doing what he's doing, and of course Cliff High not only putting out his own videos but being in a lot of the chats. Walter Bosley, Richard Dolan. Good voices. I really like Walter Bosley. I like his sense of humor. I guess being in the services, there's a little bit of a presence physically that reminds me of being in the Bronx. And he said something in a live chat about he doesn't do channeling, but he has other sources. And I like Walter Bosley enough that I listen to all the tapes he puts out, and listen to his Nox Mente interview. So I'm subscribed to his channel. I like Walter Bosley. I haven't had a chance to buy his books because it would be irresponsible for me to do that right now. But I have done my best to get a gist on like his Richard Burton material and his Empire of the Wheel, which I really want to read because, again, he allows himself speculation, and I've heard him, especially on Nox Mente, because they really got him going. And where you could tell he had some profound experiences, but he wasn't going to speak about them. And I went, oh, there's a mystic here. And so so I've always kind of taken an interest in Walter Bosley, especially from the Nox Mente interview, where it was very clear to me that there's a real mystic here. And also he made an allusion to a certain goddess and that he considers personal, but a tying in with Hecate, and Hecate is an energy that I am always courting. And so he kind of caught my ear with that affiliation, and then looking deeper into the kind of mythos and symbology around Hecate, and how the wheel, especially is her guardian of portals, and the kundalini that she's associated with, which would speak to chakras. So now we're really getting into portals. Chakra even means wheel in one way, like almost like a radiant wheel, but I think we just plain wheel. So there's some intense connection between Hecate and wheel imagery. So he's very much on my radar. So anyway, he's another person who I would gladly defer to for if Groovy Bean wants, if she has an invitation. I did notice that a lot of the people who are kind of the voices here, let's leave myself out, and let's say Joe in the Carolinas, from the Carolinas, CW Chanter, Dark Journalist, Walter Bosley, Richard Dolan. Fortunately, Richard Dolan kind of has his wife sitting with him, but I think that the male dominance, and I'm not faulting it, but I'm just saying what kind of general field that would generate. And so when something like the Groovy Bean story is something that kind of, you could say, falls into the feminine perception mode, where the pathos of it is where it lives. Unless you do the empathetic thing, which is to just dip into it. You don't need to go live it. Empathy can tap into a pathos, get the reading, get out, because now you have the data, and so data is what you need. You need to know what that is like. And so I think that in kind of a YouTube male-dominated, again, the people who I mentioned, Joe, CW, Daniel, Walter, Richard, all male names. Actually, I think the best person, the biggest wow, if I had to put together my dream team for who the Groovy would speak to, it would be Teresa Llaneros. But it would have to be Teresa Llaneros being authentic, whatever that is. But as I was saying on CW's channel, after what happened to Groovy Bean, think about if Teresa Llaneros is having second thoughts about being involved with this. She probably, again, she may or may not know what happened to Groovy, but she might have a clue as to, I don't want to be getting on the Dark Alliance list. So, and by being a part of that crowd with her, she's supporting a child, and all the card readings she's doing, and I have no problem with people getting paid for card readings, but she kind of has a built-in market by being a part of, I can't stand to say Gaia TV. So I just don't know what to say. When I can spell it, at least I can spell it differently. And the Blue Chickens, I think there could be some real Reddit. She's building, again, that's her market that she can do her card readings from. She's she has some celebrity, so that helps her. I get all this. But to me, that's the other thing, is that Groovy Bean's story makes somebody like Teresa look at that and go, okay, they did this to a sister of mine. This is my sister who got all smacked around by this crew. Am I comfortable with that with my situation? And once again, if that's right now part of her livelihood, man, do I see some, difficulty for her personally. But that would be my number one pick. Divine Frequency, Teresa speaking to Groovy about this, woman to woman. It's okay, because part of this blue chicken cult is very patriarchal. And that's, let's say, looking at the blue chicken cult from a Gnostic perspective, my kind of planetary tantric Gnostic perspective, planetary tantra Gnostic perspective. There is part of what in planetary tantra we call part of the mind virus is any ideology based in salvationism. One that takes the agency, the power away from the human species itself and places it elsewhere, especially off planet. And based in a cosmology that because of how pathetic the human species is, it needs a savior. The fact that billions are ruled over by probably not even a million, but again, a microscope, you need a magnifying glass kind of fraction to see it. That complacency is what grows in our psyches when there is a salvationist program loaded in the developmental stages. Hello, Deborah Gale. And it is, and the one where that comes with the species is flawed at a cosmic level, and has whatever this cosmic mistake is from its perspective, it's almost like the debt can never be paid off. Punishment in the form of catastrophe awaits unless a savior arises. Hello, Julie. And so, this blue chicken cult is just another salvationist religion of sorts, mind control. But it's the same theme. There's a savior. And there's a code of conduct for this savior. Once again, and this code of conduct is not one that we create amongst ourselves. It's not our agreements, the things, the agreements with each other that we would consecrate and make sacred. So those agreements would have been enacted ritually, which would make them our rights to invoke. Hey, Tote. So to reiterate, when it comes to, I'm kind of switching because I was kind of I'm trying to keep it a little bit light tonight. But the blue, my indictment of the blue chicken cult is just another salvationist theme, perpetrated on a populace raised within the cosmology. And that even if they grew up in atheistic families, that cosmology is what the moral fabric of the entertainment industry is. When entertainment industry is playing the villain or the bad, or playing with the tension points in those concepts, they're doing so from, basically a Judeo-Christian Islamic worldview. So even if you're atheistic, the entertainment is informed by this, what I would consider alien influence, as the ancient Gnostics called it, an alien influence. So anyway, that was to finish up that thought before I went back to probably the real inspiration was for the rot at the heart of this blue chicken cult, that inroad, that to get to its heart, not the movable parts, but it's where it actually lives, is what happened to Groovy Bean and how she was treated. It's kind of like, to me, that is the heart of what kind of people we're dealing with the blue chicken, especially the blue chicken, organizers. Thanks for putting that in there, Fox or Dre. That's, I wasn't doing. I was wondering how Telestic the chat would get tonight. I put on the Mystic Brew, just so it could be a little bit more of, just bring what's on your mind. Yeah, Fox or Dre, it just. It is so, there is such a different perspective of what the world is, how it operates, what pathogens look like when one enters and takes on her story, the Sophianic narrative. There is a rhyme and reason to even the craziest things, and just like anything foul, almost like a root network, you can kind of find, it's pretty clear to see where the toxin is running, especially currently, and looking into how it happened can provide some. Certainly, possibly, probably useful data. But the thing is to focus on what's going on now. Because now is where our power is. And any power, a lot of the reverberations towards the future can be set in the now. Thinking of, people say there's 7 generations, but starting with this generation, there's a lot of repair work to be done to the world. And we do need to look forward to 7 generations. And then we realize that anything we can do for that 7th generation will be done now. Including building the generation to come. to make sure that it is even aware that there's a tradition and that there's a trajectory to our own flesh and blood that is yet to come onto this planet. Where ancestors matter. And I've said this before, you know, there's a certain kind of, you know, they even, you know, owe ancestor worship, you know, before the, you know, the real God showed up. The elite and their bloodlines are all about ancestor worship. Because there's a certain bloodline that was given some permissions or certain pronouncements by the off-planet God. And so that's their story, and they're sticking to it. They got a contract somewhere. But bloodlines, it was from here. Oh yeah, but so basically what they've done, and especially by the impositions of, we're moving away from the ancestors being in that interlife space, you know, some sector of the dream time. And so therefore, what, you know, when they were incarnate, you were interacting them with that way, and when they were discarnate, you were interacting with them another way. They weren't tucked away in some heaven or hell. So, and when these came along, so it kind of switched that veneration to off-planet being, and we were supposed to forget our ancestors, but the ones who currently are the rulers, once again, the English word for the Greek word, archon, their ancestors matter enormously. If you go to their mansions, you'll see these grand portraits of, you know, generations back, because they venerate their ancestors. They are actually thinking that there's a genetic continuance, and they're upholding that. But the little people were discouraged from that. Even considered, you know, that might get you might go to hell if you keep on talking to your ancestors. They've been, you know, they're sequestered. They're either got a harp or they're being pitchforked. And so ancestor veneration, that continuity, harkens us back to what the traditional ways were, of when Mother Nature was the center of our cosmology. Thank you for handling that tote. Hello, Vernon. Vernon and I share a presence on the One Truth forum, and he and I also speak to each other. We make use of modern technology and speak face to face from time to time, and we're negotiating the current world streams similarly, and on this forum we participate in, there seems to be some kind of mind virus on it, and it's really interesting I want to compare notes with him, but what gets called propaganda there falls into a strange categorization. And it seemed to be that discussing in a positive way the President of the United States, who happens to be Donald Trump. Again, this isn't we're not talking about popularity here, or whether I just made a lot of people nauseous, and I would apologize for doing that. But as if that there are actually people in the country that elected a man president that are very happy about that, that somehow that this is some form of propaganda or cult-like behavior. Every political stripe, just identifying along a political stripe, makes its own statement, in my opinion. But it was really just odd to me that, again, the fact that an elected president of a country has people that support him, and that's on certain instances considered propaganda. Biased? Duh. But that, again, once you kind of realize what's the sides being kind of a hoax, you understand the bias. You would expect them to take this story and kind of say it this way, and you expect them to take a story and present it that way. It's like, duh. I did take a glance at the chat, and it was an interesting one from Fox or Dre. Well, it's funny you say that. In my song "Go to Your Room," Fox or Dre, what's one of my lines? The gig is up. Your bloodlines suck. They've gone to hell. So why don't you go there as well? Yeah, I mean, that whole bloodline thing. And again, it has to do with their whole who gets to rule over people. Again, they made that game up and then imposed it with their weaponry. And the lay of the land worldwide in the world today, this has been kind of a metaphor that sat with me a little bit for more than a week at least. And it has to do with the chessboard and the kind of world that is laid out on the chessboard, and how this chessboard is a sign of the mind virus. It is the lay of the mind virus world. Square, blocked out. But square is one of the clues there. And I think the pawns are self-explanatory. Once again, the chess game as the archontified world. So, at the center is what? It's royalty and their mandate of heaven. All right? Just please remember that. Mandate of heaven. This is part of the mind virus. That somehow the right to do certain things comes from heaven. That's the big thing, is whether or not the agency sources from local, or does it source from not local, which makes it alien. Where was I going? Mama has us. Yes. Well, I'm trying to think. I'm a little bit all over the place, so I apologize for that. The traditional ways. I was trying to get right back on where I was, but it all kind of just ties back to the traditional ways, which are not that long ago. Good night, Groovy. Excuse me. Yeah, it was nice. I actually enjoyed being spending a little bit of time with CW with Karen. That was a very thoughtful panel he had there tonight. I thought it was good. And of course, while all that was going on, Dark Journalist had a live stream going on, which I just tuned out because I kind of close down the live chat for the most part anyway. And I'll listen to it as kind of a way to get myself to sleep. Got an early morning ahead of me, which I don't normally do, but gotta do what I gotta do, and without any complaint. Just gotta make sure I run my schedule correctly. Oh, so I got decent ASMR points, huh, Crystal? I'm certainly seeing a lot of intense things happening, Vern. But the place I'm really seeing it, I mean, I never quite expected it, was at the forum. And there's no way, there's no breakthrough. It's like two completely different perspectives and reality points. It's spooky. Lost technology. The technology that is still patent free. Chances are there's been so many reinventions of lost technology just coming through the morphogenetic field, and people file for patents and they disappear. Not necessarily the people, but the patents do. Patent offices seem to be where ideas go to be stolen or die. That might be a little dramatic, but I'll go for a little drama. With the proviso that might have been dramatic. I'll get to that in a moment. Dan Hogan, the real Dan Hogan. But Vernon, I'd like to kind of presence what you said there, because you're coming in at a slightly different frequency than the general chat frequency, with neither one being better than the other, but they're different. And Vernon says, unacknowledged pain is a heavy cross to bear with many, and sharing that pain, not knowing. And I believe what you're addressing there is that a lot of the acting out, a lot of the seemingly blind behavior, where behavior does seem to be blind. If you know, somebody is making assertions and you point out to other evidence, it just isn't seen, can't be countenanced. And the fact that much of that is just the kind of blindness that comes from enduring a lot of pain. We keep on blocking it out. And you really get disconnected. So I just wanted to presence that, because I thought that was a deep place to go, at least temporarily, Vern. So thank you for inserting that into the chat and into the discussion here. All right, so the real Dan Hogan said, thoughts on TTSA and Tom DeLonge. I couldn't be less informed about those two things. You know, I mean, I usually will speak on things that interest me, and therefore I've investigated them and can speak intelligently to some degree on the subject. Everything I know about TTSA and Tom DeLonge, I probably learned listening to Dark Journalists and anybody else in the circuit who might have spoken on him. I don't know if J.P. Farrell spoke. If he did, I heard it. But I think, to me, as a concept, for me, don't forget, I'm an older guy, old school. Have a lot of gnosis about things that I'm comfortable enough with right now. TTSA to me is really goofy. Just the, you know, the whole marketing it to the Stars Academy, it's just, when does Edward Bernays, the ghost of Edward Bernays, leave us alone? I hope that Edward Bernays reference wasn't lost. So and whoever's along the ride, like Tom DeLonge, I don't know. I mean, I guess I heard he was with some band Blink 182. I'd never heard of the band until somebody said he was in a band called Blink-182. Have no idea what that career looks like. So I don't really know much about it, so I can't really riff other than the little bit I've heard about what it stands for. It's just like, oh, yeah. You know, it's rock and roll. It's the business. For me, there's this. I'm all for disclosure, but this is like, what do we think is important to disclose? I think the absolute nonsense of a history that has been built up officially is something I would like to see disclosed. How certain ways of thinking, whether it was, Gnostics or the Native Americans or the Aboriginals or the Aborigines of Australia, the history that actually represented a worldview, a cosmology that was eradicated. I mean, yeah, sure, there's, a little bit here and a little bit there. The taking away of Native children from their parents and putting them into Christian schools. I would like a disclosure on our story. Who we really are. And not from this, and from an empowered sovereign human species. Like, this is our planet. We share this planet along with the deer and the elk, the beaver. This is our planet. What's going on here? And that attachment was part of what Native people had. It is the organic root that created people. You could call it ethnicities. I don't like the word nation. Not as it's normally way it's tied together. It would need some decoupling. Unless, to me, unless the word nation is absolutely synonymous with the people. That the nation is a construct, a fiction for real flesh and blood. And that we keep the real flesh and blood as what is sovereign. Anyway, I don't want to go too deep because I would, I get really prepared, make sure I'm properly slept and stuff when I do my Telestic transmissions. This was just kind of off the cuff. It wasn't, so I'm not bringing certain skills tonight, so that would mean where I was going, I would want my skill set that I don't have. So, I just I want to ask actually just a question, kind of like, you know, what started part of this is, how many other that the people are here think that when it comes to the blue chicken people, that that the real pathos, the real gut wrenching, the real dirt of who they are is the groovy bean story? Am I stuck in a rut with that, or am I on? Is there a legitimacy to that? That was a question I'm putting out to anybody in the chat who might want to give me some feedback on that. I'm engaging. So it's interesting. I did discuss some topics I normally don't do, but I don't. Like I said, I chose to not pick a title that really indicates that people are being discussed, because it just usually, when you invite eyes, you invite eyes. Anyway, I am definitely feeling tired, like the tired's getting to me, and I do have to get ready for an early day. So, I'm going to guess that it seems to me not much feedback on whether or not the groovy story is hot as I think it is, from the live chat here. Because that's the whole thing. I mean, it's amazing how the juice I feel for it, and I wonder whether or not it's a shared perspective. Thank you, Crystal. Yeah, because if I keep on mentioning something that everybody's like, "Would you please stop?" Then I sound like, okay, he's losing it. Thank you, Don. Thank you for putting that in, Lady Zaga. There are some people who might not be aware of that, and but some people will watch and go, be like, "Oh, that's terrible," but they don't kind of get behind, well, what kind of system does that to another human being? Anyway, so that'll be the Mystic Brew for tonight, Saturday night, Blue Chicken Decompression. And so, I'm going to stop the stream now, and thank you all for just doing the decompress after some busy few days with the whole Blue Chicken and Corey Gate thing. Alright, so much love to you all. Be well, take care of yourselves.